sec. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, so what do we have going on? We've got the GR14 proposal. We got invited to speak at the Online News Association network, which is exciting, at their conference in September. Let's see.
David, are you going to be there at all, or is that something?
I am. I'm going to be there.
Cool.
Yeah. Who are you going to be there, Keith?
Well, we're working that out. I'm aiming to go, and then I think we're going to do one of their like midway talks.
Midway? Okay, cool.
Is subtext, the subtext have a, sorry, Crystal, the subtext have a presentation there?
Not that I know of this year. I think they're still coming out with stuff, but I've done stuff with them. I've been to almost every ONA for the last like 8 years. I was on the board for a while, so I'm very familiar with it. It's a great venue.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Let's see. Yeah, we've got 1 day left to donate on the GR14 grant. Where are we at on that? Anybody checked lately?
Well, you don't need to check that.
No? Okay, never mind. We don't need that on the record.
I'll just say that this time, I was saying like we should save our rush for the end, because then we'll know what kind of matching we'll get. But now that we know, like, it's $100 for like $1 match, it says. So it's like, yes, we know, but even if we like get a bunch of people to donate, we're still not going to get any matching. So I think we could just sit the rest of it out and just try and strategize for next time. I mean,
let's see.
We
had, our town hall was nice and lively last time. It went long, which is fun. And we covered all kinds of topics. So your weekly spaces, Alana from Ukraine DAO jumped in and kind of brought us up to speed on what's going on over there. And we kind of talked about basically, we just kind of basically brainstormed on how Web3 can revolutionize the media industry, and like what does that look like on the granular level, on a big overarching level, and just kind of spitballed possibilities there. Keith's had some blog posts, and then some progress with the voting app. And my mimosa might still be in my brain, so I'm kind of all over the place. I've been completely checked out today. So
thanks for doing that, by the way. It's like,
what's that?
Thanks for continuing to do the update, by the way. That's awesome. I think it's really helpful to get it out.
I actually enjoy doing it, which is fun because I usually hate newsletters. It's like the one thing I always hated doing. So now it's like actually enjoyable, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then we had, and Eric, I'll let you talk about this because obviously I'm going to butcher it. But we had the call with the Decent Partners and Edgeware DAO. That was an interesting conversation. I'm curious to see where that evolves into. And basically they want to help fund research and development to kind of flesh out some of these ideas. And then next week, I think we'll be able to talk, or maybe we can talk about it now, the project with Diamond DAO. So I have some progress on that too. So
yeah, the decent / Edgeware. So it's like a Matryoshka doll, but it's like, so Decent is within the Edgeware ecosystem, which is within the I think it might be within Kusama, and Kusama it's actually, I think, started out as a test net for Polkadot, but it's kind of like evolved beyond being a test net, and it's like kind of its own chain now. So anyway, but basically, if you get down to it, it's like Edgeware and all this stuff is operating within the Polkadot ecosystem, and Rich is kind of the R&D guy for Edgeware, which is a chain within Polkadot that's one of like the more truly decentralized and democratic blockchains that like I've come across. And so he is kind of like a talent scout slash like R&D guy. His job is basically to figure out, where to spend their grant money. And so we've been going back and forth, I think, for like over a month now. And he's a former broadcast person as well. I think a little bit more on like the entertainment side, but like had done some time at BBC. He's in the UK, and has a vision for merging blockchain with traditional media that I think we're on the same page on a lot of things. And the fact that he's operating in Polkadot ecosystem kind of takes it to this whole other place that I find pretty fascinating. And I think we've really managed to pull in Justin, who's pretty excited about that, who, like, I don't know if this has even been made clear, but Justin works for Parity, which is the company behind Polkadot. And so there's been some really kind of exciting and interesting conversations going back and forth on the Discord server with Rich and Justin and everyone else. And just before I logged in here, we were talking about getting some more like kind of get to know you calls together with the Edgeware folks, so we can kind of get to know them and kind of flesh out a proposal that could turn into an R&D grant, and then the R&D grant could potentially turn into a larger implementation grant with like the kind of like far off end goal. If it continues to be something that works for us, it would be to have JournoDAO or either form a parachain or have like some involvement in a parachain. So I think that's all pretty cool. Did you all have any, Crystal or Keith, have any other reactions to that call that we weren't able to get into in the time that we were on it?
I think the one thing that I would want to explore if the conversation goes deeper is the IP approach. Like, they fund the R&D, but I think making sure that the IP remains, a public good is important, because it sounded like a lot of licensing would then come into the conversation. So making sure that whatever the R&D uncovers, it remains, a public good. And it might just be that the licensing comes in when you begin implementing the parachain aspect of it. So maybe that's just something that happens down the line. That was like the only thing that we didn't have time to get into. And I think because it was such an early part of the conversation, it's just not really something to come on into yet.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to, like, I have a hunch that application specific chains are going to be the future, but I don't know how many steps there will be between where we are now and there. Like, it seems a little early to start talking about JournoDAO as like requiring its own chain or like that stuff, but that's probably like the end goal, or not end goal, but like where we'll end up eventually. So it's just interesting and which sounds like what they're talking about too, is like working up to that. But right now I think that's more clear in Rich's mind than mine. I'm just trying to think it over.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of getting to launching a parachain, I get the sense, and I think I saw this in their documentation somewhere. I feel like that's like more like the 5-year time horizon, somewhere in that realm. And the licensing model that has come up, that Rich I think has brought up in the Discord and maybe elsewhere, and I've heard other people in like the DAO and Web3 space are like exploring this kind of the idea where like a DAO or in this case I guess Edgeware invest in you or your organization at like a very early stage, and then basically they take like a small, it's kind of like the seed club thing. They take like a small cut of like 1% of your revenues from like kind of all projects going forward. that seems to be kind of, the model, which like I think is interesting. And I think we've discussed it here. Like, I think it warrants like a much longer discussion just because of its kind of uneasy resemblance to something like indentured servitude, particularly if we're talking about like individuals. Like I've heard the example of been like, well, what if instead of paying $200,000 to go to a 4-year college, college is free, but that college, takes 1% of your lifetime earnings. And it's like, I don't know. that becomes, I think there's questions. Anyway, it's a longer discussion, but I've that model I've seen come up, and I think that's kind of, and he brought that up on the call. He's like, well, you could invest in a journalist, and then, if that journalist stories lead to books or movies, well, then some of that value can return back to the investors. It's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely an extreme where it's dystopian, but there's also like a pretty like awesome middle ground where things are just like free, but people still get outsized financial returns on their investments just because like a certain proportion of people get crazy wealthy after they do your free thing, and then that kind of subsidizes all the people who don't really do that much or whatever. Like as long as you can dial in the knobs, it's really just kind of like resource allocation.
It reminds me of like whenever we see like an American Express commercial that like with Tina Fey or some like multi-million-dollar wealthy celebrity in it. My wife and I are always like, why in the world do they feel a need to to shill for whoever? American Express isn't that bad. Sometimes it's for like I think my favorite one is when you see like Ice-T doing laundry detergent commercials now. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And like, I gotta feel like, and I've heard this, some of the main motivation behind taking those jobs is, your support, that actor, that celebrity is supporting, more than themselves. In some sense, they owe it to their agent and manager, yada, yada. And so like, it introduces like weird incentives. But those might be edge cases. It's like, it's certainly better than just having $200,000 in debt for college. So,
it might just be like a tool that can be misapplied or well applied depending on the situation and the parameters that you apply to it. So maybe it's hard to say that it's good or bad on its face.
Sure. So yeah, digging a little deeper into one thing that there was in the newsletter, particularly since we've got Dave on the call. I think so. We're at the O&A conference. We're doing a presentation on the Midway / Startup Alley. And so and I've never been to that conference. I don't think any of us have. Can you tell us a little bit more about, who's there and like what the vibe is, et cetera?
Sure. So I obviously it was remote, I think, for the last at least 1 year, I think 2 years. I think the last 2 years it's been remote. So this is its first year being in person again. So everything I say should have that caveat of it's coming out of 2 years of being remote. But before COVID, you could expect a little under 2,000 people, 2,000 give or take, and so it's like, it takes over the whole hotel basically. It's like one of those major hotels, and the lobby is just filled with everybody, and lots of different. There's usually like a few tracks. The Midway is kind of like the exhibit hall. It's like where a lot of the vendors are, but it's specifically for like startups, and like they have a kind of space for like the Facebooks and the Googles and like the sort of like giant sponsors to be somewhere else, and then this is a place for folks that wouldn't be able to be in that, and there's a stage there usually, which is where the Midway presentations go, and I think they're also going to be zoomed as well this year. I think it's going to be somewhat hybrid. In terms of the type of people that are there, all kinds. I mean, it's, you know, the Online News Association was originally like the sort of like digital rebels of the newsrooms. So like it kind of has its roots in newspapers, but these were like the people that ran the websites in the late 90s, early 2000s and things like that, who now have become management. And so they spread. So it's the people who run social, it's the people who do audience or product for those news organizations. It's got some broadcast, you know, but it's mostly, again, more like think newspaper, but the digital team of those newspapers. Less, there are reporters, like the sort of, you know, boots on the ground reporters there, but most of it is actually, I think, a lot of the management, if that makes sense. And it is, you know, it's got its own community. Again, 2,000 strong every year, pretty much. And that's a rotating 2,000 because the conference is in a different location every year. And so like, no matter where they are, they get 2,000 people, and it's usually just like the cluster that are by it. So this year it's in Los Angeles. Obviously the last 2 years it hasn't been anywhere. The last time they had it in person was New Orleans. And, you know, so they kind of bounce around. And so this one will probably be very heavily West Coast. People will come in from all over, but again, I don't know this year. And I imagine there'll be even more emphasis on local people rather than the way it's been in the past where people fly in from all over. That's a guess.
And so does most of the, you know, the content of the conference, is it geared towards like, you know, actual reporting or more like, you know, business practices?
It's
What
a
sort of-
mix.
Yeah.
I would say there definitely is stuff on like, you know, reporting and, you know, like I guarantee there's going to be like, you know, hey, here's how to approach the election this year and like, you know, tips and tricks on that. But then it's also going to be like, I mean, there's going to be a track on that. There's going to be a track on, you know, I'll call it platforms, right? Like, oh, let's talk newsletters, let's talk Facebook and our relationship with them, TikTok, what should we be doing? You know, all those things. I imagine there will be you know, not an overwhelming majority, but like if there is an organization, at least in my immediate like sphere or like I don't know what the word is, but you know, immediate vicinity that should be talking about things like Web3, it would be ONA probably before ONA, and then there's also something called News Product Alliance. Like those would be the two associations that would talk about Web3 more than like anything else.
So you think we'll have a fairly like a literate crowd in blockchain, NFTs, Web3 ish?
I think you'll have, I think, you know, it's interesting. I think you'll have like a percentage that would be like me, that would be, you know, pretty literate. But we're talking 10%, you know, max. And I think you're going to have another 30% that like have avoided it and are very skeptical of it and are kind of like, fuck you. And maybe like, I don't know what percentage is left there, but, you know, there's a middle road there.
Okay, gotcha, cool. So there'll probably be plenty of room to educate and maybe a little room to argue with.
Yes, I would expect. I mean, again, I don't know if it's not like a confrontational scene, so I wouldn't expect like, but I would be surprised if there weren't skeptics.
Right, which is fair. I would in any crowd of journalists, I would expect more than a handful. Cool.
What was that other group you mentioned?
The News Product Alliance.
News Product Alliance. Okay.
I haven't heard of that one.
They're relatively new, and it's just for people that work on product in newsrooms. So it's much more niche, but again, like they're exactly the people that there, I think the percentages would be different. I mean, you'd have maybe like 25 or 30% that are more kind of fluent and interested. Just, I mean, again, I'm obviously pulling numbers out of nowhere here, but.
Cool. Yeah, that's super helpful.
All right. So yeah, and then one other thing to follow up on was so the JournoDAO partnership is, I think we have an agreement in principle, we have an emoji agreement right now, to start basically helping them shape their data analysis and visualization platform, while also getting their support to do some investigative journalism using their tools, and digging into some different blockchain analysis tools, and seeing what we can come up with. Not coincidentally, I did finish watching that entire Bored Ape Yacht Club video like not too long ago. Did you watch the whole thing, Crystal?
I made it halfway through and I had to take a break, and then my unplugging happened. So I haven't plugged back into that one. I don't know if we're gonna go there. I'm curious. I mean, I love a good, I grew up on the X-Files, so I love me a good conspiracy.
I mean, so it basically, so it seemed to me like just a ton of internet research, just like deep Googling all night long that somebody did, and then, did a fairly good job putting all that together into a film that's basically just looking to take down Bored Apes. But I think it left some pretty interesting stones unturned, which is they didn't really do, I mean, just like went so deep into looking for various, anything, kind of the conspiracy theory thing, like, oh, this numerology ties to this Nazi thing, and like it got so deep into that. Meanwhile, like doing no reporting about the actual four guys that started Bored Apes, besides looking up one of their college dissertation. Like that was it in terms of telling us anything about these four guys, which seems like, I mean, for me, that's the first place you start. And so like, I mean, I guess they were only doxxed like 4 months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe it was January or February. And so like the names are known and the handles are known. I don't know if their wallets are known, or if anyone has, like made any attempts to talk to people that they've worked with, or people that they went to weird racist rallies with or not. Like, like it just seems like some kind of like really basic stuff has not been unturned. And then if you didn't get to the end, you probably didn't get to the one interesting thing that came up in that film that I hadn't really heard about, was the fact that a lot of the celebrities that have Bored Apes and that kind of show them off as their profile pic, or talking about like Jimmy Fallon, whatever, the movie was alleging that like they actually didn't pay for those apes, and that it was basically they were gifted them under NDA as part of essentially a celebrity endorsement agreement, and that there was like moon pay was also tied in this endorsement deal. And anyhow, like it seems like there's some investigation that could be done to look into that hypothesis and those connections. So like interestingly, like the stuff that Spencer was talking about in the Discord, while I find like fascinating, like it's just missing, we're missing like the key component of being able to tie it to the founders like more concretely, which involves like actually reporting about them. So anyway, I don't know, that was in terms of like whether it could be a lead for our partnership with DiamondDAO. Like I think it could be, to me, just like intuitively it has like all the hallmarks of something that would potentially be like a rabbit hole without an end, that maybe just doesn't lead to anything. I think I posted this in the Discord, because there's so much noise around Bored Apes, and it's so prominent, that you're going to spend a lot of time digging through the noise to find the signal and then follow that. So there's like when something is like kind of already blown up and already has this much noise around it, you have to get through this like extra layer of due diligence just to locate that signal and then begin investigating. So that's like like, I think it's interesting. I'm like, oh, like we could definitely like look into this, but it's like, it feels like a potentially heavier lift than some other things.
I feel like it's walking into a hornet's nest. And I
That
like to
too.
avoid that as much as humanly possible, especially in crypto world. It's just like you're just asking to fall down this like thing where everybody's just trying to sting you. It's like, ee. But it does point out, like you're saying, like it does point out the fact that the skill set necessary to do that type of investigative work doesn't really exist. Like this person, these people that put this together just probably don't know how to go deep down a rabbit hole and connect the dots, or just don't have the energy to do it. It's easier to look at the surface level stuff than it is to get into the numbers and the metrics. That just requires a whole different type of approach.
Well, I mean, you have to get off your laptop or pick up the phone eventually, like you got to go, like the Googling's only going to take you so far. These people are wanted to be anonymous for a long time for a reason. So like to find out about their background, you're like actually going to have to go look for it like more than just Googling their name. I mean, you got to call their parents and their employers and like their connections on LinkedIn and so
and having seen like the hacker spaces that I've put this in the Discord, like the hacker spaces that I've been active in, I've seen 4chan trolls up close. Like I've watched them troll and it is, wow, it is stunning. And some of them like see themselves as vigilantes, like going into those chat rooms and trying to bring in good, I guess, or looking for, extremism and violence and trying to reverse it or notify, whoever about it and remove it. But some of them are just like, it's a stunning subculture that is terrifying. And this was years ago. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. So that part of it also, I love subculture. So that part to me is fascinating. That it possibly could be just one giant troll from 4chan. Like that is not far-fetched. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, I don't think so. Unless it is like, I mean, it is like, the whole premise of the YouTube video is like, this is an awful lot to just be a coincidence, right? It's like, it is, but like, that's, not enough to like prove something. But it is, it is disconcerting for sure. It just, it just takes a lot of due diligence to do it right, I feel like. So, yeah.
I just think the trade-off is the kind of built-in audience, since like nobody knows like who we are. Like I think the play there would just be like, this is what everybody's talking about, so that's what we're going to bring our attention and methodology to. And it seems, anything that has the public's attention like that is going to have like that noise to signal ratio, although potentially less less trolley type subcultures that we would be like opening ourselves up to. So that was just my thoughts. Like I don't find it personally interesting, but it is like, it's going to be one of those brands, for better or worse, that's around like 10 20 years from now. And like just purely by being where it was at the time. And so I think it'll probably be done eventually, this type of reporting on its origins, but whether we want to be the people who do that. And I wasn't even really, when I brought it up, wasn't suggesting that we do like the deep digging or whatever, but really just like hop on and have a discussion about the video itself and be like, okay, without, knowing anything about this, like what they are claiming may or may not be true. This is like the stuff that we like, if we were going to investigate that, this is what we would look at. And, just like what Eric told us basically like 10 minutes ago. I just think people would find that helpful.
Right. And I guess what I was trying to say is I wasn't saying that like we can't find, it's going to be too hard to find the signal from the noise. I was actually saying like the like racist, all the like racist connotations of that, like in a way that's the noise. And I don't say it's the noise to dismiss it or to like reduce the seriousness of it, but rather to point out that it's endlessly subjective and can be debated and talked about, particularly online, forever. And it's easy to have an opinion about, and it's easy to tie things to it because there's such a long and like crazy history of all this stuff. There's just an endless well to draw on the internet to make connections. But like, so like as I was watching that whole thing, it's like, okay, there's just like a lot of like kind of noise where it's like you can never definitively like make this connection between the intention of these people and this like long awful legacy of stuff that looks an awful lot like what they did. But like there's like a couple of like kind of the things that jumped out at me, like two examples of signal within that noise are the things that I mentioned, which is like somebody needs to look into these 4 individuals through their wallets if we know them or otherwise. And then also this thing with the celebrity endorsement deal, which like on the video he's like, this is totally illegal, and I'm like, well, you don't know enough to say that it's illegal, because like, number one, you're saying there was an NDA. So if you're saying there was an NDA, then you don't know the agreement and you don't know if it's illegal. So, but anyway, like those are the two things where it's like, okay, this is where there's some signal amid all this noise. This is what I was trying to say. But anyway, it's probably something to bring up with Nick at some point.
I'd be interested to hear Eureka, John, your take on it, because my initial thought was like, you're pretty good at like being the entry point for just like your average listener who like maybe doesn't have a journalism background.
It's just a 46-year-old man.
Yeah, exactly.
John Doe, man.
Yeah. So I think you being, just asking like Eric questions and like walking through like, well, how would you do this? And how would you do this? And isn't this pretty damning over here or something? I thought that'd be an interesting, like,
well, I haven't seen the video, but I've read some articles about it. And I mean, Atom Bomb was at the NFT NYC conference outside with trolling the NFT NYC conference with the whole Westboro Baptist style placards saying, how they say, God hates fags and stuff. Instead, it says God hates NFTs in the exact same style and function. And they were just completely trolling. And it brought a lot of publicity to the Atom Bomb NFT project. I mean, could it be some sort of similar concept?
Right.
It's clever if kind of like gross marketing.
I mean, so's Atom Bomb's, Westboro Baptist style protest is kind of gross marketing. There's been a lot of, and people in NFT world and the people in the Web3 space are really clever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very alternative and they're very counterculture in a lot of ways. And so I would not put it past some kind of organized type of plan to create this type of headline controversy.
And I mean, when I'm watching the Bored Ape thing, it's like, option A, it's like these guys are like neo-Nazis, and they're like neo-Nazi incels or something, that like this is their like, they're laughing at everyone, like making them billions off of
it's wrestling.
It's either it's that, or it's like I can also like, the interesting thing is like you know, 2 of them are like creative writing majors and they have like art backgrounds. Like the other thing is like 5 years from now, like they could reveal how this is like all like their grand, like, you know, postmodern commentary on racial
Andy
discourse,
Kaufman.
you know, like what's that?
Andy
Andy
Kaufman,
Kaufman.
Man on the Moon.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, like, let's take Bored Apes out of it. Like, what do you think of, is that format something that we would want to do, where we bring like, you know, Eric and Crystal and Eureka John into like a, you know, topic of the week, something that's not being looked at critically by journalists or anything, and people are just kind of like emoting about it everywhere, and then just try and break it down into avenues of investigation or where assumptions.
I mean, we could like try something like that on the Twitter Spaces. Is that what you're thinking? I mean, yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I don't know if other people would think it would be interesting.
Yeah. David is
Yeah, I didn't realize we were talking about that, about like some kind of weekly thing like that. But yeah, I mean, totally cool.
To me, it makes sense. Like there's the pro argument for it is that there's actually, I think, a lot of overlooked and overhyped things. The con is you just want to make sure that it doesn't become too meta. Not metaverse, but meta, the actual meta. Hence the problem of becoming too meta. Because I guess you know, like to the extent that it helps JournoDAO like put a flag in the ground, that's good, but you don't want to become JournoDAO the organization that's covering the crypto space, because then you're becoming CoinDesk and like, again, that's a whole other field. But the question is do you think that those existing organizations, CoinDesk and the Block and all the bajillion of them, are they critical enough of things? What are they missing? Not unlike, I mean, it's like TechCrunch in 2005, right? Like they were cheerleaders of the tech industry, and as a result, we're not critical of it and missed a lot of things.
That's a good point. I guess my thinking is like our differentiation is that would be like one side of the content where we're like bringing crypto people into like the journalism space, but we should like balance that with you know, bringing journalists into the Web3 space. So it's like, I think that would be like our unique kind of audience, is like, you know, both parties who are like not talking to each other, bringing them into like the Web3 space and journalism space, and just letting everyone get to know each other, and let Web3 people know how journalists think, and let journalists know how Web3 people think. That
Makes a lot of sense.
Well, journalists like to critically poke holes in things, correct? So
yeah.
Maybe you could have some section where where you just do nothing but just poke holes in a lot of crypto projects, and then find ways to defend those, or just provide facts to answer some investigative questions about things. And then if somebody just kind of gets stumped or put on the spot, then, you know, hey, you know, it provides entertaining content, right? I don't know.
I think it would help to be like, for the people who think crypto is just a scam or whatever, if we're like taking down these sorts of like dumb things, but we're also advocating for Web3, I think that makes our stance, you know, more powerful. It's like, yeah, we're trying to like get rid of that stuff in the space, but there's a lot of good here that you're not hearing about, so you should listen to us.
Yeah, like one person could kind of be like, I mean, a lot of people think of crypto as nothing more than just like MLM type of, you know, that CrossFit dude, you know, and or whatever, you know, and you could have people play certain roles of that, you know. I could play, the neighbor sitting here trying to convince you that helium is the best blockchain in the world. Yeah. And you could start poking holes in it. Yeah.
Right.
And I could get defensive. I could get flustered, and it would be good content.
Mhm.
So I mean, I guess the thing becomes, does our little community or little group like feel like it has the expertise or the standing to evaluate different blockchain projects or NFT projects? Because I personally don't. Like John knows a lot more than me. I think actually all four of you know a lot more than me in that department, probably. Like that's why I'm like end up like opining about things from like a media literacy and like journalistic ethics type thing. that's where my actual experience lies, and like why more of my criticism actually probably had to do with the filmmaker on YouTube than of like the Bored Apes.
But that's what we need, is what I'm saying. There's plenty of people who are like NFT addicts or whatever who are talking about this, and they're evaluating it on those terms. And that's why I'm saying like that's the value add, is bringing in like, I think it's a benefit to like have at least part of our DAO not be super technically embedded in the culture, so that we can keep asking these sorts of like outsider, like new brain questions, because that's who we're trying to attract. And so I think we need to always be asking those questions to make people feel like, oh, I can't join JournoDAO because I don't know anything about blockchain or something like that, or I have to be an expert in this, or I have to be a journalist, or
Right.
that sort of thing. I think it's our job to take the complexity and invite people into it in like very just human ways, instead of playing the expert card on everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I like that. I guess like, part of why I'm here is like, I look around Web3 and I see like either like on one side, it's basically a lot of marketing. And then like when people get sick of marketing, they'll like try to counter the marketing with almost like activism, but it strangely in itself, then that can become marketing as well, which is where I thought that video was at, was that it was like taking at the end of the video there was like a direct call to action to like tweet burn BAYC and like literally go burn your NFTs and let's take down this Nazi group, which like that's activism, that's not journalism. And there's actually not a lot, Decrypt and CoinDesk and the block, they get better all the time, but they're still they're participating in the marketing an awful lot, so like yeah, I think that's kind of the space for us, is to like point out like what, like there's nobody's really like attempting to play referee here, which I get, that's what you're saying, right, Keith?
Yeah, or even just like invite people into the conversation and like level them up on like, okay, when you come across something like this in the wild on your own, like maybe we can give you a few things to have in your head to evaluate it. Like think for yourself, and don't just take our editorial standpoint on it, like take our meta thinking and analysis and just apply it to anything, come up with your own, perhaps even contradictory conclusions to JournoDAO or whatever. But let me synthesize it into like, would you want to spend an hour each week, like the three of you talking about stuff and then releasing that as a podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I like the conversation we've had the last 20 minutes.
Dare you. Well, no, only if you enjoy doing it, because I want it to be something that like, makes all three of your lives better and can be repeated without a whole bunch of like
teeth pulling.
Yeah, yeah, like I'm not going to do the like, okay, are we doing this week? Hey, are you guys meeting this week or whatever? But it was an idea. Maybe you guys like it. Maybe it's fun.
You
If
know
not,
what would be a thing to do is you should, just to stress test the idea, is just come up with like the headlines of a conversation. Don't even go into it, but just like how many of those headlines can you come up with? Because if you can only come up with like 2 or 3, then in 2 or 3 weeks, then you should still do it, but then just be like, hey, we're just going to do this 2 or 3 times. But if you feel like there's a real there, then you can, you know, if you can jot down, 5, right, and you assume that in another 5 weeks you'd have a 5 more, then it's worth it.
Can you give like
Yeah.
an example of that? I'm not sure I get what the concept of the headlines is.
I mean, a concept of a headline. Oh, I mean, like even just right now, although this one is more obvious because everybody's talking about it, it'd be like Celsius, BlockFi. I mean, again, these are less in the weeds and more like top, things that people are concerned about. But like, what exactly is the banking, the backing of that? That's one. What are these the lending platforms? Another one would just be like, hey, what is decentralization, and like let's look at a few projects where we feel like they're not centralized, and what does that mean and what does that entail? Like just, but you don't have to like do any research for it, just like very high level headline type stuff.
So you mean basically give the context to a lot of the mainstream headlines going around, like for the week? Say, so everybody this week is talking about Terra. What's the context? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like providing some background for people
it could be context, but it could also just be something that people aren't looking at, right? So like, this is where like, again, this is where it's hard, right? Like the best stuff would be things like, if you had looked at Terra Luna or Celsius or any of those, which some people have been, right? A month or 2 ago, right? Like what are the issues that you see in the space, in the industry, that people are not talking about? Or giving context to the headlines of the day, right? Like either one of those I think work.
I think what you're saying, David, is for you 3 to generate like 3 ideas for like an episode or a discussion, whatever that is, and then see if you can even come up with 3 that you would want to do. And then if you do, and then there's like more just kind of keep naturally flowing out of it, then like maybe there's something there. If you can't, then maybe you just do like the few that you can come up with, and then we'll not make it like a regular thing.
And we're thinking like podcast / YouTube material. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, this all kind of stems from like, Eureka John, I think, did you mention about doing like an audio update? Oh yeah.
I mean, I was originally just proposing just to read the newsletter, just read it and just maybe elaborate on a few points here and there. And because I did that, I made on DAO Planet, on like one of their newsletters, I just read it, and just created an audio version of it. So that was the original proposal. Then I was like, okay, maybe elaborate on a few points in here and there just to provide some context or some background info. And then in Bankless DAO, at some point, we had talked about a group of us doing something called the weekly troll up, where we just kind of, make jokes about the headlines and everything that was in the Bankless DAO weekly roll up, and poke fun at it. But not everybody had the same sense of humor. But
did that ever get recorded?
Oh, that'd be good.
No, it didn't. But we had a good time practicing with it.
I have like 3 different iterations of like, friends were like, let's just get together and drink and record a podcast. Like,
drunken history, man. I don't even have to be drunk to do it.
Like, I mean, one of those had like a very short run, and then the other 2, I'm like, I can't even edit this together. This is just nonsense.
Isn't there a blockchain and bourbon podcast? I remember seeing that somewhere. Might have been a few years
There's
ago.
a Brews and Blockchain podcast that the Crypto Masters does, and I like listening to the Crypto Masters. They're pretty entertaining. Yeah, they just basically roll through the headlines and they just give like completely unqualified opinions on everything, and that's pretty funny.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, I'm down to try whatever. I like working with John and Crystal and the rest of you. So yeah, if we can finagle a schedule, I'm down to try whatever.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
okay, I'll have some dumb idea next week too. So there's no shortage of these things. You can just say pass, pass. I'll get the next one.
Yeah, maybe everybody come up with one article and then sends the links to each other in one shared document, and then everybody just kind of reads the article before you go on, and then just hit record.
Mhm.
Sure.
There are worse things that can happen.
And then so okay, and then next week Keith will have us make sourdough. So the agenda.
From a journalist point of view.
I don't like the way that they structured the recipe.
Yeah.
Keith, did you want to talk about the voting app or founder NFT or well, potential podcast content was the other thing I had down for you. So we knocked out one already. What else is in your wheelhouse there?
Yeah, well, I'm itching to just get us on a screen share and get you to do the founder NFT thing on Unlock. Probably wouldn't take more than 10 minutes, but you have the keys to JournoDAO.eth, and then we can talk about making that a multi-sig later on. But then we're off and rolling, and we got Matt from Focher, I guess, wants to be the first one to mint. I say we knock it up to 2 ETH and just go from there. Do the sponsorship idea for, we'll kind of like consider eligibility for like a logo band on the website according to like the sequence that you minted. So it's kind of like if you want to apply first, you have to like mint the founder NFT and then go through the process. We're not going to take everybody. It's just like that's kind of how you become eligible, like as a extra perk.
Cool. Yeah, I'm up for that as well. So it sounds like we need to get drinks, get headlines, talk about media stuff, get on Unlock. So we just have like a Lollapalooza session later this week or something where we get it all done.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have it kind of in the evening too, after everybody's done with their day and winding down and just feeling a little relaxed. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not. We don't necessarily need to roll the Unlock thing into like the discussion podcast idea, but we could. Might just be like good to continue that sort of like working hour type thing that Jennifer had us do for like the mirror NFT, where we just all try and do something for an hour. So maybe that's good. And
I just had a vision of a bunch of drunken journalists trying to make NFTs on Unlock. Like that is the opening episode to like the movie right there,
yeah.
or the series that we're gonna make. That is hilarious.
What could go wrong?
Oh, so many things.
Yeah. I mean, if you
Then I could just text Julian and be like, hey, Julian, we really screwed this up because we were drunk trying to make our founder NFT. Fix it.
Yeah. Prove how centralized things still are.
Exactly. You'd be like, no.
Undo this, please.
You'd be like, no, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Step one, you tweeted all your private keys. You're gonna need to delete that tweet. So one thing I was gonna ask you, Keith, is so if we're getting the founder NFT ready, and putting up a post for it, there's like what kind of I don't know, what do you think is the central thrust of the pitch for the NFT? I mean, do we want to get into the buy a newspaper thing, or focus more on, you know, the perks of the being among the first founders and kind of supporting the mission? Touch on all of it. What do you think?
In my head, I feel like the whole thing should be trying to like talk people out of doing it. It should just be like just brutal honesty. Like, we are just like a few people who have this idea. There's like absolutely no guarantee, but we're all like super confident that this is going to like be something awesome over the next 10 or 20 years. And if you don't do this, you're going to be kicking yourself. But like, we really can't tell you anything about what this is going to be. We're talking like events, we're talking educational content. We all have a history of executing, but like, it's a total leap of faith. That's like why it's the founder NFT. If you just want to like see what happens, like that's who we're going for. Like, and we don't want people who are like, if that this is a lot of money for, who are like stretching to make this happen. Like, we want to scare those people off. Like, we don't want people to be pissed about, you know, the money that they sunk into this. But, you know, there's people out there who like hear what we're about, and they're like, yeah, you guys are going places. Like, I believe it. I have some money. Like, I've made way worse investments. Like, I'm just gonna mint one of these things. And like, that's the kind of person that we're going for, at least at this stage or whatever.
What do you think about like basically committing to having at least a cocktail hour in LA at the ONA conference? So there's like at least a single tangible thing that we can point to. It's like, you at least get a drink in September. Actually, I don't know if you get a drink, just get in the door.
Maybe we can do like a list of things with like a percentage confidence next to it, you know. And then we have like cocktail hour in LA, like 90% confident, like sponsorship on the website, like 100% confident, you know. And then like, we'll just go down the list and make them like more and more fantastical as we go.
Okay.
Because it's really just about like getting people's imagination going, because like that's what we're doing. Like,
yeah,
we're coming up with these ideas. We can't really do them without people giving us money to do them, and who are like along for the ride and want to see what's around the corner. And so we're bringing the ideas, you bring the money, and then let's see what happens.
okay, cool.
The headline could even be like, do not mint this NFT. Or like, we dare you to mint this.
But you're gonna buy me a drink though, right, Keith?
What's that?
You're gonna buy me a drink in LA?
Oh yeah, for sure. Only if you mint $2,000 NFT though. Be the best drink of your life.
You gotta throw in something completely unrealistic. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
You know?
Totally.
Make people laugh.
We'll genetically engineer the perfect journalist.
I like it. Yeah, we could throw together a draft and start working on that soon. Full disclosure, this is our anniversary week, and so my bandwidth will be draining and circling the drain probably after tomorrow afternoon.
Well, there's no rush for it. Why don't we do it next week?
Yeah, we could. I mean, I'm available during the day, but like the next 2 evenings are going to be pretty off limits.
Oh yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have to do it right away. If you want to wait next week.
Yeah, I say punt it to next week then.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Okay.
off quasi off the grid Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. My niece is coming down, and it has been demanded that I give her all of my attention. She's 5, so she might let me slip away here and there, but there's not going to be a lot of, which is fun. So
I agree. Those 5 and 6-year-olds, my daughter's 6 and I have another 3. I have a little on air sign outside of my office door here, and I literally turn it on and they know to look at it.
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Nice.
I'm just gonna say I hate the manufactured urgency of newsrooms. That's one thing I would change. So I definitely do not want to like repeat like that. There's really no reason we can't do it next week.
Okay. How's the so like is the voting app up and running in Republic? Are we at the same stage in both? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do a run through here if you guys are up for it. If you have like 20 minutes or so. With children screaming in the background. It's like I see a lot of like concerning movement in my periphery as like kids are playing on the front lawn and stuff. And it's like I'm not sure I would catch anything if something bad were going on out there.
Are you doing like stay-at-home dad while they're like not in school in the summer? Is that the gig right now?
Kind of, yeah. The idea is like to wrap work at like 10 or 11 in the morning, minus meetings, and then just I don't know, hang out with them the rest of the day. But our neighbors down the street have kids about the same age, and they all go to the same school, so they've just been like playing together. So
Nice.
let's see, I'm trying to can you enable screen sharing, and then I'll
okay, I made you a co-host. I think that does it.
okay. Yeah. Oh, geez. Gotta give Zoom the right permissions here. Okay, I'll have to pop out and pop back in again because Zoom has to restart, but I'll be right back. Okay, hit me one more time with the co-host thing.
I like that image, Eric.
This is my wife's Zoom account, and she's a collage artist.
I actually do like it. I was just trying to think of
The art kind of looks like the album cover from Indian Jewelry. I don't know if you're familiar with that band.
Indian Jewelry.
I couldn't place it, but it does look like an album cover to me.
She's illustrating an entire tarot deck right now, which is, and there's 78 cards in the deck, so it's like 78 individual pieces of artwork. I think it's like the single longest like art project I've ever seen. But
tell me when it's available. My wife loves collecting tarot decks.
Oh, right on.
Same here. I'm totally into that woo-woo shit, so let me know.
Cool.
Okay, so can you all see the action here?
Yeah.
Public voting. Yes.
Is this the same deck that you sent me a link and I logged in and voted on a proposal? Okay.
Mhm. So it's not quite to the point where like, I don't think anything permanent has been generated yet because I'm still kind of finding holes in the data model. But so anything we do here can and probably will be wiped out, but I'm just gonna go through this. So there's different views. Like if you log in, you're not gonna see some of this stuff because I'm like the admin of JournoDAO, or like I'm the one that created it. And so it's a little bit like stuff we're used to, like a Discord server or something like that. But these are, I'm calling them town halls. I'm open to renaming any of this stuff. But then all I did after creating this was the only thing we're integrating with right now is Discourse. So I set up our JournoDAO Discourse server. And so this is where we'll actually make a proposal, have discussion about it. And then once you connect the Discourse server via the URL API key, then it'll pull in all the categories that are there. And then you choose which ones out of which categories you want it to pull in for proposals. So I just chose governance proposals. And then you'll get a list of like the tags that are on the Discourse server. And then you can map those to like whatever categories you have in the app. So if you go to categories, you can just add anything here, but then you kind of have to tell it, you know, what goes with what. So if you put like the operations tag on a post in Discourse, then you got to tell it to do that's an operations category in the Republic voting app. So hopefully I'll make a lot of this stuff easier, simpler, but most people won't have to look at this. They'll just be like admins. But that's what I've done so far. And then to really start things off, we need to get everyone some tokens. And so the way an admin does that, hopefully this will all be automated and done in the smart contract, but I'm just going to mint some tokens here. Let's do 1,000. Okay, so at this point, when we're all hooked up to smart contracts, like these 1,000 tokens will like actually be in this smart contract waiting to go out to people, but they can't go out to anyone unless that person has delegated their tokens to other people to vote on their behalf in their absence. The idea is to avoid the situation where, you know, 80% of people just aren't involved and have no idea what's going on. So everyone's engagement is the act of claiming their first tokens. So there's no way to get voting tokens without having like made your will known somehow, even if it just means delegating all your tokens to somebody who you don't know. It's like that was your choice, and so that's going to be your impact on all of the decisions going forward. But from the admin side, so I've minted 1,000, and now I need to choose like what percentage everybody has, and so let's do 20%. Okay, so you can't do it until you've distributed 100% of the tokens. And so this right here, I'm thinking would be done with Coordinape, where we would all kind of, where you subjectively just decide like, oh, this person did this much work and this person did that much work because I saw it. And then at the end of the Coordinape session, you have a list of people and percentages, which is basically what this takes in. But right now it's just all manual. So like say we did a Coordinape session with 5 of us, and then we all fortuitously decided that everybody did an equal amount of work, and so we're all getting 20%. And then we lock that so nobody can come in and change the percentages. So that's done because we need that to stay immutable while people claim. And then this is where you all come in. Hopefully, maybe you got I think I put in email alerts. I'm not sure if you all got emails just then when I locked that up. But if you log in under JournoDAO, under claims, you should now see 200 tokens ready to claim.
I got it.
Okay.
Same, I got it.
Yep, me too.
All right, cool. So this is probably the most complicated part and needs the most like UX work. So I'm curious to hear feedback, but the idea here is like now we have all of the categories of proposal that could come in. Like there could be a proposal that has to do with operations. And so maybe you want somebody different to vote for you when has to do with operations, and that's different than the person you would want to vote in your absence if it has to do with software development. And so you kind of get this matrix across the board here where you're going to delegate to everyone, but I acknowledge that a lot of people aren't going to want to do that. So there's this special category all, and if you just whatever you put in the all category then just propagates to all the other categories. So if you just know that like whatever it is I want Eric to vote for me, then I would just give Eric all my tokens. And now like if I go to these topics, then I see that 200 is already entered for me. And the reason it's locked is because right now it's just like it's a little complicated, like from a UX perspective, like what the expectation is. Like, okay, if I enter in 200 in all, then like what's the expectation if I come in here and start editing this 200? Like, do I think that I'm editing that for like all the other ones? So that just takes more like user research, and I need everyone's help on figuring that out. But and then the reason why there's a non-locked number here is like theoretically I could give 100 to Eric. Probably borked it in all, but then I want to like distribute some separately. Yeah, it's not gonna. All right, well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with all. So if you have the patience for it, I would go through one by one. Or you can one and done it with the all category. Let's see if it'll take 200. There's
Well,
also
I've seen nothing similar to this really anywhere.
yeah, jury's out on whether that's a good or a bad thing, but this has like been kicking my around in my head for like 15 years, and I just needed to like expose it to Oxygen, see if it was anything or nothing. So
Did you build this DAO platform yourself and this voting platform? That's awesome. I just figured you use something like Aragon or Colony or something, or
No, I was looking for something like this, and I talked to like the people at Snapshot and a few other people, just asking like, can I do this, and basically laying out this functionality. And it was either just like too much of a hack or just like not supported at all. And people were kind of confused by why you would want this. And so I think now that the governance, like pay for governance meme is like collapsing, I think a lot of people are going to end up in this area. I don't know if it'll be exactly this or whatever, but the idea here is to like delegate a quorum to the experts so that they can just autonomously, make decisions, go through proposals, without like the rest of the DAO having to weigh in on every single thing. If it's really just a software development question, like the proposal doesn't need to go out to everyone. But like at the same time, everybody could, if they want to just like, they don't know anything about software development, but they want to sit on every software development proposal and vote and vote and vote, they can do that. But more likely people are just going to be like, I don't want to worry about that stuff. This person seems like a good software developer, or I'm just going to divide it between all the software developers equally, or whatever. And then you get your software development team who is like empowered to just kind of make these decisions. And if at any point they're kind of going rogue and the rest of the DAO is like, wait, what are you guys doing? Then, everyone can pull back those delegations. And that basically like fires the software developer or the software development team.
Or I could delegate them to somebody who knows more about software development than me. But in the meantime, I'm taking courses on build space or something. And then once I feel like my skills are up to par, I can pull those votes and put them to myself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's awesome. Like this seems like a really good test bed for the concept too, given that like, the scope of JournoDAO is kind of absurdly broad, to the point where we've talked about both investigative journalism, media literacy, and like launching a parachain in the last hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping, because that's what all DAOs I've worked in are like, that's the problem they all have, is like, okay, well, we want to collect input from everybody, but we also don't want to be paralyzed for 4 months while we try and like address everybody's concerns. So I think hopefully this will like make DAOs a little bit more nimble.
Yeah, the first time I saw, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, what do you mean you've been thinking about this for 15 years, like before blockchain, like in terms of like restructuring how Wired would have worked or something like that?
Yeah, if you look back, like my first story for Wired is like about digital voting, and I'd gone down to my buddy was doing like a PhD at Stanford looking at this type of thing. They had done like a white paper, and he just kind of explained the like how expertise would be rewarded across like a network, because you could, through delegation, you could be like, he was using like personal choices, like, oh, I trust this person with like my hamburger order option, but this person with like my pasta order option, or like this person for like R&B music recommendations, this person for another one, or whatever. And then you could like make better decisions just based on like that delegation of expertise. And so, yeah, that was like back in early 2000s, and pitched it to Evan Hansen over at who I'm working with at FactLand now, after I got that job, because David had it first. It's all come together.
Yeah, as I say, that's full circle.
Yeah, and Dan Steinbach, I just met with him a few days ago. He's the student at Stanford who initially triggered this idea, so I'm hoping to get his input. He was pretty excited to see that it was, there's actually like a UI UX being built around it, because it's only ever existed in white papers, basically. Which I'll dig up all that stuff, like the actual PDFs and stuff, so people know where this came from.
I cut you off, John, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that the first place I saw delegated voting was ENS, and then I saw it on Optimism, to where you could do it. And then Hop Protocol is doing delegated voting like this. But I've never seen it broken down into category. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, same. We did it at Unlock. We delegated, but never by category. And this is so much more logical than like with the ENS airdrop. I'm like, I'm just randomly picking people and I have no idea who they are. And at Unlock, we did our delegation through our airdrop too. And, but still, like, they were nominated by the community. So the community knew who they were, but this is really cool to have it broken down by just by task or responsibility.
The ENS thing I thought was interesting, and you could kind of watch it because there were, people, John, there were people in Bankless that were involved and like wanted to be delegates. And it was interesting. It like automatically put a political layer on top of ENS, which was interesting to watch kind of from a distance.
Yeah, suddenly people campaigning all over Twitter for getting people to delegate to them. It's very politician-y. And I mean, I guess that can be good or bad. I don't know. But I think the idea of breaking this down into category, as long as they don't have like people that have to fulfill certain requirements to be, like software development delegate, as long as it remains open and free, because maybe, John Doe might not have some kind of computer information, or is not a software engineer, but knows a lot about software, and that he does, right?
Mhm.
And so you can still delegate to them without there having to be some kind of level and regimen of qualifications in order to be one of those delegates. So
Yeah. And it could be that just like this random person who doesn't really know anything about software just happens to like make all these great decisions when it comes to like proposals. Like you really just want to like delegate to the person who you think is going to, carry the project in the way that you want. So yeah, I don't see any reason to limit it right now.
yeah.
Lots of reasons not to. But yeah, if you want to look more into it, it's often called like liquid democracy. There's been a few. I think somebody said that Pirate Bay was run on some version of this, like back in the day. Let's see, Democracy Earth is like another one. Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff out there, but it was never, I didn't know they were proof of humanity.
I think I know what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let me know if you want some links.
Okay.
But one thing to note, kind of like the ENS delegate, is like everyone's going to need to have their page here. And it initially, I thought it would be great to have everyone's voting records, so you could be like, oh yeah, I want to delegate to this person. But now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or like, I'm definitely seeing the need for like pseudonymity where, I don't know, people can be influenced by, oh, this person voted this way, so I'm going to delegate to them. Or somebody could be like, oh, if I vote this way in this circumstance, I'll get all these delegates from this person. It might reflect more genuinely like a person's opinion in a vacuum, like just given this, like these details, like this is what they would do. Whereas like you start to get the group think going when you see people's voting record. Oh, thanks for stopping by, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
It's kind of you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Because I mean, I would imagine, if we didn't have the like transparent voting records that we have for Congress, it would be even worse.
Just showing that they voted. I know this was a problem we had at Unlock, is that people were getting delegated to, but then they just didn't show up to vote. And we even reimbursed them for gas in some instances because we were on mainnet. So just maybe at least to start showing that, yes, they voted, so that this person is actively voting on your behalf, not necessarily what they voted.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the whole idea behind decentralized ID, to be able to show the door guy that you are over 21, not necessarily your birthday to your address or anything like that, so keeping some kind of privacy and anonymity through that. Not sure how it's done, but I think that's through ZK, zero knowledge type of technology, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm hoping just to pull in like somebody else who's like built the greatest like implementation of that. I don't really want to go down that that road on my own, but yeah, little things like just whether they voted, that's something we can experiment with on this one. But yeah, if you all can like fill in your bio or something, we can start getting a feel for that. If you go to your profile, you should be able to fill in your bio and have it appear on your claim page.
Where does this live? It's voting.republic.io.
Voting.republic.io. And then I'm just going to go ahead and claim this. And now I should have my tokens. This doesn't update properly, but if I refresh, I should see my balance over in the side.
I got a whole hop, folks. I got to go to the podcast hatchery meeting. So.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Hi.
And so is this going to, so are we going to be minting on Ethereum, or have we not decided that yet?
We haven't decided yet. This is just like a client server thing. This has nothing to do with the blockchain yet, but I do have like the smart contract factories and the contracts set up so that once we do decide on a chain or mini chains, then when you create your town hall, you'll be able to deploy like an ERC20 token and like the governance contract. Those might be the same thing. I'm talking with John Pleviak over it, who's like the main technical person on Factland. Talking with him about whether that should be the same contract or not. Because like right now, like as gas prices plummet, like what is expedient to include in the contract and in what ways is like totally changing, because it's like what could be like $50,000 a year this year might be like $500 a year next year. And so it's like, do you really want to, consolidate your infrastructure for a future where it's like probably not going to matter that much? I don't know. It's a bunch of trade-offs. But yeah, it's ready to go, but there's just so many like UX issues that need to be solved first. That's just easier to like, have a database that I can wipe and manipulate and get the data model down and get all the interactions down. And then since like we all trust each other at this point anyway, and it's only a few DAOs using it, like I'm not going to onboard anyone who really needs like blockchain level security on their votes or anything. But then I've started to map out this your voting power visualization where you can see like your tokens and then how many have been delegated to you. And so I can go to like software development, see that Eric delegated 200 to me. And then I think you just did the all category. Is that right?
Yeah.
I can go. So yeah, lots of stuff to build out, but that's kind of like the end-to-end thing. And then I guess if you have time, we can go look at how voting works real quick. This is dummy UI right here. But this stuff is live. So if I vote yes on here, it should, track my vote, except it's not displaying the power right there, but it should. And then the way you do that, if you're curious, is just through tags in discourse. So let's see. Test governance. This thing. So if you look at the tags, I tagged it with yes or no. And then that will, if you do that, then when your proposal is brought in, it'll be like the yes, no, or abstain UI. And that's what determines that. So it's up to you to write like what what yes, no, or abstain would mean, like within the text of the proposal. It's just a little too weird at this point to get like the UI to update according to like structured data in the post. And then, and the only other thing I did was a single select. So if you do single select and then put a number, then that'll give you that number of options on the proposal. Let's see if we can do that right now. Or maybe I did that. Oh yeah, I did single select 3. So maybe if we go back. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'll just give you the different options here and you can vote on that. Actually, this one is sort of working. The results here, you can kind of see. And what's interesting is the results are going to be, there's going to be like the voting power number, but then we're also going to have like the actual person number of people who voted. So those might carry different weights. And also an interesting thing with liquid democracy is since everything is delegated, so like you're saying, like if your delegates don't vote, then you can collapse those people's delegates. So like if they didn't vote, then your delegates pass on to their delegates. And then you can keep collapsing those down. I think that's an open question on like what level of it makes sense. And it could probably be configured for everybody's tastes or what everybody wants. But theoretically, like, you know, you could have one person voting with the entire like, voting power of the community if like they're the only person who votes.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that that's the way it would work, right?
Yeah, it falls apart in different ways, but that's kind of what I want to figure out. And then also you can do like hypotheticals where like if I had like the 3 options up here again, like statistically, I could see if I voted this way, how all my proxies would collapse. And you could see that like maybe I don't like this option as much, but there's like a higher chance of that going through if I vote for it, and I'd rather have that than like this other thing. So there's a few different things that might be good, might be bad, might, you know, but they're potential gamification. So that's the stuff I'm excited to test out with this that we've never really been able to test.
Yeah, it'll be super fascinating to play with. There's like so few DAOs where I feel like I've actually done a lot of meaningful voting.
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels like guessing the right answer where it's like, oh good, yeah, that's what everyone else voted on, so that's what'll pass. It's not like,
Right.
how should I have an impact here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks great. Sorry, my dog is like eating and drinking in the background, so it's like the most ridiculous noise ever. But but yeah, that's amazing. Like I'm just kind of blown away by this whole thing. Like when we did some voting at Unlock, and this would have made it a lot smoother. And yeah, I love how it's all under one umbrella.
Yeah, cool. So I think the next thing is to just fill up meaningful proposals that that we want, and then also figure out the coordinate circle thing. And it's a little bit of a bummer because we won't really know. Ideally, you have like one token mint every month, and then you all kind of, you know, you have however many days in the coordinate circle. It has to be done by this day, and then whatever those percentages are on this day, then that's closed. You can't do that anymore. Then that goes into the token mint distributions. Everyone knows it's going to be 1,000. And so whatever their percentage is there, they know how many tokens they're going to get. And then they go and do the claiming. And then that has a limited time frame, like 2 days or whatever. And then if you don't claim in that time period, those just roll over to the next claim period. But basically, if you don't claim, then those tokens don't factor into like voting at all. And they just kind of sit there waiting for you to participate. And then, so like that whole complete journey, I think will reveal a lot of stuff, but I want to speed run that basically, and like, you know, within a few days or something, like pretend that that happened, and then pretend that this happened, pretend that this happened, and then do it again, and like just get a feel for how it all plays out. So that's kind of what's on my mind. So any ideas and help there would be good. That's kind of why I left things manual, so that everything is like, you can mint manually, you can delegate manually, you can all that stuff, but there's just weird things like, okay, so now that I've minted this, and then I I made the distribution to everybody, what happens if like one or both of these two people join and then they don't have anything? And then what if I add a category after everyone's delegated, but they didn't see that category in order to delegate to it. So then it's just like, they don't have any voting power on those categories. So how does that work? So little things, not little, but like things like that are kind of only becoming clear now. So it's like, oh, well, maybe a category can't enter in until everyone's had a chance to delegate to it or something like that.
I think most of my questions have to do with how the distribution would work in terms of, yeah, like how does how often, how much, and then the big question is like, you know, who's involved, like when, if and when and how it gets opened up to people beyond like basically our like main core group.
Mhm.
Which,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess the idea is to play around with it with like the handful of us for a while, right, before we really get into that.
yeah. Well, my first kind of filter or threshold for that would be like, as the admin for the JournoDAO town hall, just anyone who I'm aware of that did work for the DAO, anyone who I'm told did work for the DAO or whatever, then I would just invite them into here, and then we'd go do like a coordinate circle with everybody and then get those percentages just from that.
Okay.
So I think that's the next. Once we all feel like we have a good list of everyone, like if Jennifer and Guy get on here, and then we capture anyone else that I'm forgetting, like Justin, or I can't even remember now. But
So like the like key case would be like I don't, so like people that have given to Gitcoin, or like people that buy like a founder's NFT, like where do you see them factoring into this system?
I don't think money should equate to any sort of governance within this system. I'm open to being wrong about that, but I feel like, why not just make it pristine? Like, you only get governance if other people think you did valuable work for the DAO. Like, so first step, if you want governance, is to get into the coordinate circle, and then you have to be invited into that by somebody who's in there, or like the person who set it up. But then once you do that, you're eligible to get governance tokens, but then you have to convince people within the circle that you did some sort of work, or convince them to give you some stuff. And then if you can't do those two things, then you don't get any governance say.
Okay.
So those each have their own ways to be gamed, but at least somebody can't just come in and like buy up a bunch of tokens, and like it's harder to game, I think.
Yeah, I like it. Makes sense. Yeah, I definitely like the idea of keeping governance separate from monetization. For sure. And I got to run here soon, like now. So
Yeah, why don't we call it? I'm a little burnt out too.
Okay. Any quick thoughts on topic for tomorrow for Twitter?
no.
Okay.
I got no thoughts. Like my brain is just completely. I think the mimosa and the macaroon just put me over the edge. Like, right? Cheers. I'm gonna go do a shot of peach schnapps. Maybe that'll wake me back up.
I'm totally drunk, in case you didn't notice. Okay. All right.
At
Thanks.
least you didn't wake up this morning and wonder, oh my God, what did I do while I was drunk last night? And what did I post on Discord? Like, oh shit, I didn't even want to log in. I'm like, I know I wasn't drunk. So I know I could have done really dumb things, but oh.
All gems. Did some good work while you're drunk.
You're the best gift work ever.
Yay.
Are you really, Eric? I cannot tell.
No, I'm fine.
Like, neither would surprise me either way.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. See you guys.
Yeah,